19 National Assembly seats lost and a narrow win in Gauteng for the African National Congress. The Democratic Alliance down 5 seats in Parliament and losing its role as official opposition in Mpumalanga. Devastating for the top 2 political parties. And we wait to hear from the National Executive Committee meeting happening right now what sort of leader Cyril Ramaphosa will be allowed to be in this new political spectrum, and if the face-off between the factions will play out in his favour or not. Political analysts Sipho Siepe and Dirk Coetzee join me now. Gentlemen, good to have you with me.
Thank you for inviting us.
Sipho Siepe, what are you expecting to come from this meeting? I mean, what is it that they're going to be talking about right now? What is their main focus?
Well, the first focus is analysis of the results. Like you indicated that the ANC, despite the celebration, it did lose 19 seats. And they have to reflect on that. And then the second immediate reflection would be around the issue of who becomes the premier in terms of in the various provinces that the ANC has held, and the whole debate about gender representation and equality. And the Women's League has already come to say they would like to see 50-50. The last time they lost, they end up with only one woman being a premier candidate for the ANC. So those questions will be very important. Then the other issue has been the issue of the battle that has been going on between members of the ANC. I mean, statements that were made by Fikile Mbalula as well as the Secretary General of the ANC, where some people who are keen to see a battle royale within the ANC.
Saying basically it's a combined effort and not just a...
Yeah, and what they did cleverly was to make sure that they resolve that issue, because the media was interested in, and some people in how is this going to pan out, with some saying there's going to be the guns blazing for Ismail Sakhashwili, but when he gave it...
The fact that he's still talking out, after he was told to play the game, just shows the divisions that are still there. That has to be addressed, doesn't it? I mean, how crucial is what we see now in the next couple of days to Cyril Ramaphosa's grip on power?
I think what's important is that I think from President Ramaphosa's side that there should not be open defiance in the ANC, no, after this election. He wants to consolidate his position. The ANC received a mandate. He will claim a lot of the credit for that mandate. But if there's open defiance in the ANC, then people will start to ask questions. Your guest just before here will say, but what is the certainty that we have? That what is happening inside the ANC, by implication government also, if there's open differences of opinion?
But why shouldn't there be this time around?
Well, at the time of an election, I think it's very important for the ANC to unify now, because it's not only about normal differences, it's something with a very long history. It actually goes back, in my mind, to 2005, when President Mbeki dismissed then Deputy President Zuma. Since then, there has been more and more factions, divisions, like at the Polokwane conference. It followed in 2012 at the Mangaung conference, and now again at Nasrec. And that is why I think President Ramaphosa is emphasizing so much this notion of unity and of organizational renewal. And I think that is how I understand, at least, why he's not pushing away his opponents, but trying to keep them as close as possible to him in order to prevent the ANC from fragmenting even more.
Okay, so what impact is that going to have on the list? Because not everyone's going to make it to Parliament, so who stays and who goes?
First of all, what Dek is saying, and this is what has happened today, was the ANC to try to reconcile what appears to be contradictory positions or oppositional positions, to say, yes, the president played a role, but as part of the collective. Because the argument that the SG was saying there were thousands of volunteers for the ANC who were on the ground. So you cannot attribute to one person. But at the same time, you must acknowledge that there is a leader who electrified the campaign. So this was about the reconciliation. So President Ramaphosa is very clear about the issue of unity, why it is necessary, because without it, the ANC will not be able to implement whatever it wants to implement, because it will be an inward fighting. So he comes from a background of being a reconciler. So he's always looking at how can we reconcile positions that appears to be hostile to each other, when in fact there seem to be two sides of the same coin. So in terms of the parliamentary issue, I think it is where there's going to be a challenge. The media speculation has been that he's going to start removing certain people who are implicated. But what you heard from the presentation is that the list that has been given to the IEC, that list is going to remain. So effectively what you see is the balancing and an attempt to say when they fail, then they be removed. And that's a promise that the president has actually given, that we are not going to have slackers. But whether that will come to be is something else.
I mean, that would have quite a dramatic effect on South Africans, right? South Africans voted for change. They made a real statement there that they're sick and tired of corruption. They're sick and tired of people who can't do the job. So you would think that they'd be a little bit more effective than that, or bring more radical change.
Yeah, I think from my point of view, I mean, the ANC has 230 members in total in Parliament, but those who are taking the lead is a relatively small group. First of all is who's going to be the ministers and the deputy ministers. Secondly, who's going to be the chief whip. Thirdly, who will be the speaker. And then who will be the chairpersons of the portfolio committees. If the majority of those are very close to President Ramaphosa, the other 100 or so will be there, but they won't be able to sort of determine the balance of power in Parliament. I think Parliament is going to become, for President Ramaphosa, a very important sort of base of power base, together with government as well as together with the NEC. And I think what possibly is in the pipeline is to say, reduce the influence of the ANC in the provinces. We have, for a very long time now, that's where the core of power in the ANC and government was, were in the provinces. The Premier League is a good example of that.
Okay, let's talk about the DA. So Mmusi Maimane stays for now. We've got Athol Trollip saying that he stays leader, but then the Federal Council Chair, James Self, he wouldn't confirm this on 702, what's going to happen to him. So what sort of referendum do you think this election was on him, and how strong a grip does he have on his future there?
Well, what is clear is that the DA has not had a succession plan. And to start thinking about removing a leader, it's not going to look good for the DA. First of all, you need another black leader to replace him. And there's not one obvious at the moment. But Athol Trollip has been very consistent, even before, that whatever the outcome, Mmusi stays. And what we saw in the press conference, irrespective of what Self says, is an affirmation that Mmusi stays. And when you take that position publicly, you can't immediately, unless there are real battles within, start saying the person must be removed. But then you must have somebody credible. What has happened within the DA, and they must be more realistic about it, has been the normalization. People who were largely racist, who could not stomach the leadership of a black person, have moved on to join the other parties, like the Freedom Front Plus. So Mmusi finds himself trying to gain traction within the black community. And by all accounts, there's been a success in that. So the DA will need to do more work. But one must also understand, the DA has not dressed itself in glory in the way it has treated somebody like Petra de Lille. They mishandled that case, and in the end, an impression was that if you are independent and strong and black within the DA, you are going to face problems.
So good news, obviously, for the EFF and the Freedom Front Plus. I mean, they're really sort of nibbling away at the ANC and DA, aren't they? So
well, to some extent, but if you have a longer-term view about, for example, the Freedom Front Plus, in 1994 they had 2.2%. Now they are back at 2.5%. So it's, in a sense, a circle that's been closed. They went down very low to 0.8 or 0.9, and certainly they got a lot of support or supporters from the DA. And there is a type of a rearrangement that is taking place, almost like what happened in 1999 with the DA, when they moved from 1.7% to 9% with the National Party supporters who came in. The question is whether this is a once-off event, or whether it is the beginning of a new trend amongst the parties more on the
growing nationalist voices,
yes,
right, on
yes.
either side of the political spectrum.
And the other question for me is whether those parties, the EFF and the Freedom Front Plus, are not going to be pushed to the center. Now, because people think about it as being sort of on the side and more radical and more populist in some cases. But, being in powerful positions very often has the effect of pushing you more towards the center. My anticipation is that is actually happening. If you look at, for example, what is said in the EFF's election manifesto, it's a very toned down one compared to the one of 2014.
Right, so the elections are over, but Drama still to come, I suspect. Sipho Siepie and Dirk Coetzee, thank you very much for joining us. Now, are America and Iran squaring up for a battle? That and the other international stories making the news is next. Then, the debilitating US-China trade war has claimed another victim. Wall Street has tumbled to a 2-month low. Will we feel it here?